This week's episode is brought to you by Blue Harvest Vintage. Are you a collector? Blue Harvest love to help you find that missing piece you need to complete your collection. They have extensive stock of vintage Star Wars vehicles and mint-on-card action figures, as well as new The Force Awakens and Black Series items. Blue Harvest have Funko Pops, Lego, Dinky, Corgi, Matchbox and more. Everything a collector could possibly need. If they don't stock it, then let them know, and their knowledgeable staff will be only too pleased to help. Reach out to Blue Harvest on Twitter at Blue Harvest UK, Facebook, Blue Harvest Vintage Collectibles, a website, blueharvestvintage.co.uk, or email at blueharvesttoys@gmail.com.
Talk Star Wars is a proud member of the Star Wars Commonwealth Podcast Network. Follow at SW Commonwealth on Twitter and take your first steps into a larger world. This is Talk Star Wars, the official podcast at talkstarwars.co.uk. Hello everyone, welcome back to Talk Star Wars. I'm Mark.
I'm Stephen.
Rob.
Paul.
We're not doing the official thing. We're just saying names tonight, are we?
Yeah.
No, this could work so much. Yeah, it's like we're disinterested or something. I like it. How are we doing, guys?
I just realised I am the Last Jedi.
You
What
are?
is that?
Yeah, because he gets the and credit.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
But he didn't give himself the and credit. You can't drop the and. It ruins the whole effect. But
who is this Anne character?
Gary, it's your son. It's Gary.
I don't know what you're talking about, Nancy. I want you to shut up.
Just some advance warning that this surrealism may not be around all night because both you two gentlemen need to jump off at separate points, don't you, to take care of some other business. So
you could pause and let us come back and stuff.
That sounds like it's going to interrupt our flow. Rob and I flow.
And the first person to listen to this podcast and guess what film that's from. First person who guesses what film that's from wins a prize.
No,
Sorry, Mark,
I've
done that too.
I don't know.
No one's going to guess it. And yeah, there is no prize. I'm going to make a note of some time codes, I think, Steve, if you're going to make promises I can't keep. Let's get into an announcement section.
I'll send you a picture of his wee-wee.
No, I won't do that. Just a quick reminder that our sponsors, Blue Harvest Vintage, are offering a 10% discount on orders when you tell them that we sent you. So head to facebook.com/Blue Harvest Vintage Collectibles or follow at Blue Harvest UK on Twitter. Tell them Talk Star Wars sent you and save yourself some money. And also check out Mark's posts. He's writing quite regularly now on Talk Star Wars. So
he seems to be prolific.
You will learn an awful lot from that fine gentleman. We've picked up a whole bunch of YouTube subscribers this week. Some names it's not giving me because of that thing where if they keep their subscriptions private, I can't find out who they are. So if you're one of the unnamed few, I apologise. But Michael Carter Jr., Pizza Kitty, which wins a prize for an awesome name, and the Will Bros have all subscribed to the YouTube channel this week, so thank you very much. Daniel Zoka became a TSW sponsor and by extension a VIP this week, so thank you, Dan. We all welcomed him into the Facebook group this week, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he's a good
Didn't
guy.
make too much fun of his name being similar to Danny Zuko from Greece.
No, that's right, yeah. He's Dan Solo. We've dealt with his tweets and things in the past, and I think there's an email or one of the tweets we got in here this evening.
Oh, that's him, is it? Okay,
that's him. Yeah, so he's a good guy, is Dan.
Yeah.
Okay, reviews. Rob, you delivered these today, didn't you? Which is awesome.
I did, yeah.
And you delivered quite a few around the Commonwealth, right?
I've been a busy boy.
You have been a busy boy. You're doing the Lord's work. So don't forget that you can take advantage of our Ron Burgundy policy. I don't know why I'm bothering doing this anymore because people are really leaving sincere, straightforward reviews now. There's no comedy to it anymore. So I thank you for your sincerity. But if you wanted a funny one, Ron Burgundy policy, we read whatever you write.
Do a Chris Walken policy.
Yes. All right. This week's special. If you leave us a 5-star review, Rob will do his best Chris Walken when he reads it next week.
Wow.
All right, fine.
So I'm making promises that you have to fulfil, Rob. For a change. Okay, this is this week's. These are this week's reviews. So this one's a 5-star review. The best Star Wars podcast. High praise. Thank you very much. The first Star Wars podcast I discovered, and despite dabbling in others, clearly the best. The informal style makes you feel like you're in somebody's shed chatting with friends about a subject we all love. Witty, unscripted. A lot of work goes into making this look unprepared.
we got notes. That's about as far as we go.
Witty, unscripted, and with a genuine warmth which encourages people to get in touch. Having discovered in late 2016, I now look forward to each new episode. Love Star Wars, you'll love Talk Star Wars podcast. And that's from Ian Jolliffe, who left us some nice comments last week. Do you remember?
Yes, I remember.
He sent us a nice email.
I like the thing about warmth, because you know what else has got warmth? A dumpster fire.
That could be us. The next week's reviews need to have that as a heading, I think. Dumpster fire. All right, the next one is from a gentleman named Buddy123190 in the US. Great Star Wars podcast. Listening to these guys is like listening to best friends chilling in a bar. Great chemistry and amazing insight into the galaxy far, far away. So thank you, sir, for taking the time.
That makes me feel all warm and fuzzy, that one right there.
Yeah,
so does a dumpster fire.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I want you to buy us a drink now, Mark, you tightwad.
Hey, I bought you lunch on Saturday.
I know you did, I'm joking.
Well, I didn't buy you anything because we didn't have any legumes or wet grass.
Well, no,
that's all you eat.
I didn't have any beans to suck on.
Too much like fun.
All right, let's get in. We've got this week's episode was supposed to be a listener comms only episode because it was a slow news week until the big thing dropped.
It was all going so well, wasn't it?
It was going so well, and then Lucasfilm just released something ridiculous. So we're going to get to the one news story, but there is an awful lot of listener comms this week. So,
all right,
let's get into this. Just a quick reminder of how you can get in touch with us. You can send us your questions and comments via Twitter, or send them through Facebook, or in email form to talkstarwarsinfo@gmail.com. That's talkstarwarsinfo@gmail.com. And you can also attach an MP3 or voicemail if you want to get your question onto the show. We've got two this evening. So our first com this evening is from Dan Solo. Does someone want to take this, Rob? Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So Dan Solo writes, Dear Mark and the rest of the gang at Talk Star Wars, I'm Dan Solo at Star Wars Sucker, and my question is around Lando's behaviour on first appearing and meeting our heroes on the landing platform in Cloud City. Obviously, under normal conditions, this could be seen as fair banter, but considering the Empire are already there and Lando has probably discussed this moment with Vader, it seems a bit inappropriate. The only thing I can come up with is that Vader has asked Lando not to scare them off, and he feels the best way to do this is do what he normally does. I wonder what your thoughts were. Also, do you think we'll see or hear about Lando in Episode 8? I think it would be a crying shame to look over a character that was so important to half of the OT. Thanks very much, and if you don't pick this question, I'll think of a better one for next time. Have a great show, Dan. Now, Paul, you were on Cloud City, so you can talk a bit about that, right?
Yeah. I'm not allowed to tell you what really happened, I'm afraid.
As Lobot, I feel your programming would forbid you to lie. So.
Okay, I wasn't privy to the meeting. It was behind closed doors. But
that is true.
Vader, there was a conversation.
You were napping in a closet, weren't you, somewhere?
Yeah, and I don't actually speak anyway. So.
A text message.
I could do that next time. Use my headset.
So what do we think? Let's start with the second bit first, shall we? Because I think that's a nice clean cut answer. Are we going to get Lando in 8?
No.
I don't think so either.
It's going to undercut the standalone film, isn't it?
But actually, taking into account Hands Gone, you might.
It would be a good fit at this point.
You might. Well, there might be, because Luke's going to ask, possibly, the night. Once Luke catches up with the news and stuff, you might get at least a name drop.
Wouldn't we know by now? Because Billy D would have been seen in Pinewood or around Pinewood.
Well, you don't know who else is in it, so.
No, but I think it would have been outed by now, wouldn't it?
I would have expected to have heard something. You see so many. We're seeing photographs from the set, and we just saw Oscar Isaac release that image of Carrie and Mark. Just when we lost Carrie at the end of last year, they were sitting together outside a trailer, weren't they? And you would think that you might pick something up if Billy was around. Rob, what do you think?
I'm kind of thinking we won't hear from him. Certainly not in Episode 8, because I feel like if we were going to hear from him, he wouldn't have been so seemingly salty about the Donald Glover stuff.
Oh yeah, that's
a good point. At this stage, I get the feeling he's not been confirmed for anything. They might have had a chat with him about ideas, but obviously with recent events, they may be rethinking some of those ideas. So it may be that they've kind of put the feelers out. And
wouldn't it be terrible if Lando was going to be a large part of Leia's story in 9?
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, if the question was, do we want Lando in 8? Yeah.
No, absolutely,
Amazingly, that would be superb. It means that the films wouldn't feel so disparate from the original trilogy. Is that the right word? Disparate?
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. I think it would have, if he had been announced for 8, the symmetry would have been there, wouldn't it? Because you'd have had that, you'd have had the same template as the original trilogy with Lando popping up in the second one. If that had been a thing,
yeah,
I'd have been thrilled. But I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic there might be a cameo that will be shot during reshoots, and I hope that's the case. My concern at the moment is that Lando may have had more to do with Leia's story, and that might keep him out of the loop.
Mm.
Okay, what about the first part of Dan's question? Why was Lando so flippant on the landing?
I think he's right. I think it's just, if you let on that something's up, I'll tell you what, you're for it, mate.
Mm-hmm. Was that straight out the script?
Yeah, he did a good job because Han, of anyone, probably would have read him, so he did a good job. It was complete play acting.
Actually, if you look at it, I think Han's a little bit off balance with the way Lando greets him, because he greets him quite aggressively, doesn't he? And then he turns it into that little, it's a joke. But Han's a little bit off. If you watch Harrison Ford's reaction, he looks shocked, like this isn't the greeting I was expecting.
Yeah. And
then it all turns out that it's this joke, but Leia gets his number straight away, doesn't she? I don't trust Lando. She sees straight through it.
But Han don't trust him either.
No, that is true. But
I was kidding.
No, I get you there. But that is true. I suspect that Lando being like a chancer, a grifter, I would imagine what he's trying to do is he's trying to get out ahead of the Empire's gambit. So he's the whole thing with pushing Han off balance so that he can disarm him, smuggle him into that dining room. Would all be him trying to buy himself some time. And I think we kind of see this, right? This is pretty much in the text. He's buying himself some time so he can get out in front of this thing and make his move.
Do you think? Vader would have been there sometime, so he would have known exactly when they were going to arrive. Like, what's he doing, milling around in Sky City? Like, you think he's got a room and just sitting there watching pay-per-view?
Well, he's an
administrator. I think he's probably administrating.
Oh, do you mean
no?
Do you mean
Vader?
You mean Vader?
Oh, Vader.
Well, Vader hasn't even got his.
No, Vader only turns up very, very briefly before Han does.
No,
he's probably catching up with his.
No, he says
Twitter.
They arrived just before you did.
That's true.
Yeah. He's probably catching up with his social media and stuff.
Yeah.
No, he's listening to the Imperial March.
I can't think of Vader not doing anything.
Sith Twitter.
Yeah, exactly.
Sinstagram. I think really.
Sithgram.
I think the Executor is on the other side of Bespin, isn't it?
Probably.
His Star Destroyer is on the other side of Bespin, so
it's a bugger to hide, isn't it?
So I don't know.
Interesting.
I heard. I was listening to Skyhoppers this week, and they were discussing the amount of time it took the Falcon to get from Hoth to Bespin, and they were saying it's 40 days. That trip.
Really?
Okay.
And we've always said that they don't spend a lot of time
dwelling on it,
managing the passage of time within the film. No. Star Wars has never handled that very well.
So, but how do they know this? Is it canon then? Or have they done
it's somewhere. They didn't nail it down for me, but it did intrigue me because I know that one of them was saying they'd heard it was 6 months, but I think it was Ben that said it's 40 days. So we're going to have to... Didn't
they do a poor job of putting that across in the film? I mean, that's awful because it feels like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Would have been a long sit down, mate.
Yeah.
Isn't she still wearing the same underwear, though?
They're all wearing the same get-up completely, but I think that's so that we don't get confused. And this is the thing that when George put this film out, I'm sure he didn't think in 30 years people are going to be picking over this little trivial point. Maybe the new films will be a little bit more diligent at tying this stuff up for us.
Yeah, because at the end of The Force Awakens, it feels like they leave the planet and then they're in Artu, is it?
Arc 2.
Arc 2, in like seconds, doesn't it? It's really badly done again.
Yeah,
but
it's something it's never spent time on. But it's It explains a lot. If we were to say it was 40 days for them to evade the Empire and get to Bespin, it gives Luke a lot more time to train on Dagobah, which is the important part. If you think that Luke's only been on Dagobah for a couple of days, then he hasn't really got enough to go and confront Vader with, has he?
No.
Okay.
No, so yeah, that does make more sense. Maybe I'll cover that in the remake. Oh, I've said too much.
And not intended as a factual statement. All right, Dan, thank you very much for that. And thanks again for becoming a VIP. Have we covered everything? Everyone had something to say?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so, yeah.
All right, who wants to take Kyle's? Paul, why don't you take Kyle at Tumbling
Okay,
Saber?
I'm trying to scroll in the right place.
Damn.
Kyle at Tumbling Saber. Sorry. Hi, Mark of the Gang. I hope this arrives in time, and especially hope that you are all doing awesomely well. Well, here's my question for the week. Will Luke have a sense of humour in episode 8, or will he be totally serious, all business, and not in the mood for pleasantries at all? Not that he was ever Rodney Dangerfield, of course, but what kind of demeanour are you expecting from him? I'm just seeing Dangerfield's eyes all of a sudden around.
I'm just picturing walking around Arc 2 going, what did I tell you?
kind of wobbly, yeah. Grave, serious, will he be grave, serious, bordering on depressed, or someone with a renewed sense of optimism and hope now that Rey has arrived? Enjoy kicking this one around. Cheers, Kyle.
I think all of the above.
We don't know what state of mind he's in, do we? That's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, he's going to find out Han's dead if he doesn't know already through the Force. But that's not going to help things.
Well, that's absolutely going to colour Luke. This might be something to be concerned about, really, because, like you say, we don't know much about Luke now. We don't know much about what's happened to him in this downtime, and so whatever we're going to meet straight away is instantly going to be coloured by the delivery of that news about Han, isn't it? So if he was this jovial guy that's like, I can't wait to get the Jedi up, and then he's told no, Han's dead, he's like, oh. So,
well, he's already lost all the Jedi, isn't he? Because they were all slaughtered.
Yeah, he lost his academy, yeah.
I think he probably was grave, then he was serious, and now he will be depressed. He's going to be all three, isn't he?
Yeah, the trifecta. Rob, what's your take on that?
I don't know, to be honest. I suppose it depends on whether or not he's got any kind of sense of what's happened to Han at all. You know, he might have already been sort of dealing with it when she's on her way, in which case he might be a bit more, he might have processed it a bit more. Mm-hmm. But I think he's going to be, gruff and that sort of thing. I think at one point we actually speculated on this. We would have him, that he'd be kind of a little bit antisocial and things like that. That he'd be lacking social graces. Yeah. So I'd like to see that.
That's the Yoda.
How long's he been
colour,
on Arc 2?
That's a great question.
There alone.
The wheels came off for him and Ben about 6 years before The Force Awakens. So we know there's a 6 year period.
So that's a long time, isn't it?
It might not have all been there, because he could have done some of the searching for the temples with Lor San Tekka and the Church of the Force or something in that time as well.
I mean, look what it did to Yoda staying alone. He was like...
Yeah, true.
He's out of his gourd.
But some of that was performance as well, wasn't it? To throw Luke off balance. Yes. And once he really started his training, that's when the wisdom came out.
And that's when he did the seagull song.
I just watched that tonight. I was in fits. Paul,
it's so good.
Run, jump.
Paul, what do you expect from Luke in the Last Jedi?
In all honesty,
will he be a backpack while she runs?
I really hope not.
They did that in a photo, didn't they?
Sorry, Paul, carry on.
That's all right. I'm actually expecting him to be not serious, yes, but not, I think, lightly serious. I think he's going to be focused. And I think he knows, I think he's going to almost work out 90% of it as soon as he takes the lightsaber.
Maybe he'll have. That's a good point, Paul. Maybe we'll have it like when Rey touched it.
You might even get a moment like that, to be honest.
That would be
fantastic.
That would be fascinating, wouldn't it?
That would be a hell of an opening scene.
Yeah.
Do you guys?
That's a really good, Paul. I love that idea. That is awesome, because that was the best, everyone's favourite scene in Force Awakens, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It worked as an info dump as well, didn't it?
Yeah. if it works, I like that, Paul. That is a really, really, really good idea. That.
Do you guys remember hearing a report, Steve? I don't expect you to, because you can't remember what happened at the start of this call. But there was a report a little while ago about how Luke,
Why, thank you.
Luke would have trouble controlling the Force, and he'd be destroying, like, you know, those little beehive huts. He would destroy that with the power of his mind and stuff like that. So maybe, I mean, it depends what his motivation is for being on Arc 2. If he's there in self-imposed isolation because he's dangerous now, maybe we're going to get a little bit more of an explosive version of Yoda. He's not this little imp.
It's choice. It's got to be choice.
Yeah,
he's there because he wants to be, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's there because there's something in that system of great value. Okay.
Tangent, Mark. Did you anyway? You've all seen his reaction to The Last Jedi, right?
Yep.
Why was his hair not like it is in that video? It's perfect Luke hair. Has anyone seen it? It's fantastic. He looks 20 years younger, and he looks more like Luke than he does in Force Awakens at the end.
Did he have a beard?
No, that's kind of semi taken off.
Or
his
semi-grown
hair
back.
is proper Luke hair. Google it and have a look. I'll drop a picture in the notes here.
Okay, drop it in the chat.
Okay.
So what's our final conclusion? Do we think he's going to be? Which way are we going to come down on this? Serious or jovial?
Very serious.
It's going to be focused. Is the word.
Focused. Rob.
Han's dead, and I'm the one who's solo. I got to tell you. No, I think he's going to be a bit gruff and a bit sort of grumpy at first, and he's going to gradually ease off as he realizes how to deal with people again.
Right.
Yeah.
That's my feeling.
Don't give in to hate and all that. So
Not so much that. He's just going to be a bit, he's not going to quite know how to interact with people, having not done it for some time. He'll be a bit sort of trepidatious at first. He'll be sort of, not really sure how to say things and stuff. Maybe a bit foggy. His brain might be a bit sort of foggy.
I've dropped a picture in for you. It's in there.
That's the guy we met at the celebration in a nutshell.
Yeah, but his hair looks brilliant, doesn't it? It looks like perfect Luke.
Yes.
It's slightly coloured.
My goodness, doesn't he look young?
Yeah.
Awesome.
If you want to Google that, if you do Mark Hamill reacts to The Last Jedi and go on images on Google or any other search engines are available, then you'll have a look and see what you think.
Okay.
It is really interesting.
That's time spent talking about a photograph on an audio podcast. Right, let's get to our next question from our friend Dave Poe Donovan. Dave's renamed himself. Poe Donovan. Right, I'm going to take this one. Have we done this? I can't remember. I have a question about episode 8. All those morons, I mean people, that complained that The Force Awakens was too much like A New Hope, a parenthetical comment here as well, a lazy, short-sighted criticism in my view. I have a feeling they're going to be the same people who are going to complain about episode 8, and that is too much of a different feel from Star Wars. How do you guys see this playing out? I think we're going to get a Star Wars like we've never seen before. I trust Johnson. And given Johnson's reaction and the rather revealing comments that he hopes people will appreciate and get on board with his take of Luke, which we've just been discussing, and where he is now, how did you guys interpret that? Are we going to see Luke in a little unstable? Are we going to see Luke be a little unstable mentally, or just kind of endearingly kooky like Yoda when we first meet him? Wouldn't it be awesome if he was unstable and dangerous, at least initially? As always, excited to hear your thoughts, especially as I have no idea or answers to any of the above. May the Force ever bring you the answers and that raise 10 more questions, Dave. So let's just go back to well, we've already been discussing Luke, haven't we, to answer Carl's question. I must point out Carl's question was from last week. It just came in as we were recording last week, so I didn't have time to do anything with it. So what do we think? Let's take this in two parts.
Right.
The first part with the slightly hyperbolic claim that people who believe Force Awakens is too much like A New Hope are morons. I'm sure Dave's being hyperbolic when he says that. I'm sure he doesn't.
I'm sure he is. He better be. Because otherwise he's lumping me in with that because I've made that claim and it's not without merit.
We all made that
and if
claim.
he's serious, I'm going to poo on his car, and that isn't hyperbole.
I'm going to poop in his slippers, and that's not hyperbole either.
We all said hyperbole.
Paul, would you care to kick in your pronunciation of the word hyperbole?
Hyperbolic.
Is that a really fast testicle?
All right, so
testicle mark.
let's just table this right now.
Don't time code my testicle.
Let's just discuss this now. The similarities between The Force Awakens and A New Hope. We had a little bit of an email exchange about this morning, didn't we? Steve, you didn't because there was a swear word, so probably got filtered out.
There are masses of them, for crying out loud.
There are a huge amount.
They are there. How much they bother you is up to you, but they are there, and to deny they are there is short-sighted.
It's a bit moronic, you could say.
Can I put in my 10?
I wouldn't go that far.
I think that
It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
Unless you have people that do draw those similarities between the films and keep, for what is definitely a corporate entity, Disney, away from just making money and also giving something back to the fans, you're doing the film a disservice by not speaking out. Because they'll just go, oh, cash cow, we don't need to think about it much. So you have to raise things like this.
Yeah, exactly. I said something similar about a different subject a few episodes ago, but you have to hold the people making the stuff you want, you have to hold them to as high a standard as possible, because otherwise they'll just do what they want and forget all about you.
Yeah, and they do listen. They are paying attention because look at Lucasfilm's statement recently about a CGI Carrie Fisher. They listened, they took the temperature in the room, they knew that fandom wasn't happy, and they heard.
Let's hope that doesn't backfire.
The similarities between the similarities between The Force Awakens and A New Hope, they are certainly there, and I think that they're more stylistic, and we discussed this previously in episodes nearly a year ago now, that it was more about soft rebooting Star Wars, and there were plenty of things at play that that provoked the decision to structure that movie so closely to the structure of A New Hope, and essentially it's just the hero's journey. I think the last thing we'll say, and then we'll move on from this point, is that Return of the Jedi is far more egregious with its repeating of elements of Star Wars than The Force Awakens.
I don't agree with that.
I can't buy that. I'm sorry, Mark.
No,
I don't either.
There's the Monster Rally. He redoes the Monster Rally. He redoes the Death Star run. There are so many elements in that film that you can see George was going back, thinking this was his last Star Wars film. You can see George going back and redoing the bits that he wasn't satisfied with previously, with the technology that he had managed to bring up to a level where it could perform. So
I felt it was a perfect sequel to the story. I didn't think when I was watching it, they've done this before. Not once did I think that.
We were younger.
You can tell, looking at it now, with what, 30-odd years distance, you can tell, can't you? You can diagram out the similarities between those two films. And I don't think it was done. I don't think it was done for cynical reasons. George likes this rhyming stanza, and he wanted to revisit those things. You have to watch the Star Wars movies with both sides of your brain, right? You can watch it and enjoy the narrative, and you can watch it and you can enjoy the technical production side of things. And if you get those two things to complement each other, you'll have the sort of joy that I experienced watching Rogue One, because those two things complemented each other so well. There was a great narrative flow, and there was great spectacle on screen that was perfectly crafted by the filmmakers. George did that in Return of the Jedi. We give it a free pass because it's really not worth digging into those things too much. No,
agreed. But I mean, again, like I say, those similarities in between 4 and 7 are there, and some of them are more kind of, most of them are little things, to be fair, like transporting the important documents in a droid and things like that, and having a super weapon that's a planet-sized thing that can destroy whole systems and blah blah blah. And a weakness in it. Yeah, having a flaw in it that's actually that's actually an exhaust, that's to do with the heating as well.
Having a character, character that doesn't know she's Force because she's got the Force.
Trench run.
Yeah, trench run, that sort of thing. So there's a really good what is it? The Honest, the Honest Trailers channel, the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
They did a really good, really quite fair, honest trailer for Force Awakens. I encourage everybody to watch it because the You know how they give everything a joke title?
Yeah.
They gave it Episode 7, A Familiar Hope. And to me, that's perfect. It's like, you know, it's a bit like A New Hope, but it's just familiar. It's not a straight, you know. If Dave was just saying the people who say it's identical are being a bit silly, I would, exactly. If he was saying that, I'd have no issue with it. What he's saying is people are saying drawing the similarities are lazy and short-sighted. And I don't agree. I think that actually to deny those things is kind of being a little bit of a fanboy.
I would take it one step. I would take Dave's comments one step further and say that people that write The Force Awakens off for doing what it did, they are foolish.
They miss out.
That's underestimating The Force Awakens and what it brings, despite the similarities to any films that went before it. Nailing it to the wall and writing off Star Wars because that film was very similar is a mistake. So I'm with Dave on that point. I don't think that it's fair to say that us here. This isn't Dave's accusation in any way, shape, or form, but it would be unfair to say that we are doing Star Wars a disservice by calling out the similarities. But if that was all we did, maybe there'd be a problem. But it's okay to acknowledge these things.
Yeah.
We understand why these things are there. We understand what a soft reboot is. We understand that there's a nostalgia thing that we're being treated, and basically they're sticking a flag in the ground and saying Star Wars is back. Yeah, that's what we got treated to.
That's exactly it. It's a movie that's simultaneously designed to start telling a new story and also bring people back into the franchise in a way that's going to evoke the same feelings that people got as first time they're watching New Hope. That's the idea, and that's why those things aren't, you know, these similarities aren't a deal breaker for me and for most people. Like I say, if it was, you know, for those people who are saying, oh, you know, it's a straight rip off, I can't take it seriously, blah blah blah. Yeah, fair enough. I think they're wrong. I think they're wrong is a strong word because
they're robbing themselves. They're
denying
themselves.
They're missing out. Yeah, but they're missing out. And like I say, wrong is a strong word because all this stuff is subjective. That's the other thing is, you know, what bothers. I have a friend who saw Force Awakens at the cinema, and he texted me a big list of problems he had with it. And most of them were things that I'd noticed, but they weren't things that bothered me to the same degree they bothered him. And that's just how people interpret things differently, you know. What one person's disaster might be another person's, oh, that was tough, but not, you know, not the end of the world. It's everybody kind of deals with these things differently.
Yeah, and some films are built to be a little bit more robust when it comes to examining them after the fact. You know, when I watch these films, I'm like the 5-year-old boy again, and I come out of it thinking that was great, but I can't actually pin down anything. It's not until second, third, like this weekend when we all went together to see Rogue One, fourth viewing, I got so much more out of it. It just keeps giving because I start to focus a little bit more. So one viewing and saying that's too much like New Hope, I'm done is an error.
It's a shame.
And so that's what I think has motivated Dave's comments there.
If he's dealing with those people on a regular basis, I can understand his frustrations.
Well, Twitter's littered with them, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's not to say that I think Dave's, you know, completely wrong or anything like that. I have some sympathy with that viewpoint. I just think that the way he's phrased it suggests that he doesn't have any.
He doesn't have patience with it.
Yeah, and like I say, that's fine to a point, but these things, you know, mileage may vary on everything, especially media.
Indeed.
Yeah. Still love you, Dave, no matter what.
Of course.
We love you, Dave.
Although I am insanely jealous you've met Rufus Wainwright. So, you know, there's that.
Yeah.
What an unusual.
Rufus Wainwright.
He's here with me now, Rob.
No, he's not. I know he's not.
He's playing piano in the bathroom.
Oh, okay.
So let's get into our breakdown of Dave's question then. How do we feel people are going to react to episode 8?
Depends how good it is.
Yeah, it depends on what it's like. I've no idea. If it's, you know, if it's crap, there's going to be people that are saying it's crap. And in the same, you know, if it draws a lot of comparisons with Empire, there'll be people who point those out. And you know, I think people will. The initial reaction will be very strong, regardless, because there's going to be certain beats they're going to hit that are going to resonate with people who've been waiting a long time for them, like Luke's first line of dialogue since Return of the Jedi. Wow. That sort of thing. You know, these things. The last Star Wars appearance of Carrie Fisher as an on-screen actor.
Oh God, yeah.
These things are important, and as a result, this movie is going to have a certain amount of. I can't find the right words. This
nostalgia.
Nostalgia is it's a weird way of putting it, but that's kind of what I mean. Yeah, there's going to be a certain amount of sentiment kind of surrounding it. Certainly initially. Over time,
I hope it's more celebratory than just farewell.
Oh, I'm sure it will be. It's my feeling is more. What I mean is more the how the reaction is going to be to it critically. And I think that we won't really get a sense of that for a while after it comes out. I think because of that kind of wave of sentiment surrounding the film in so many ways, I think we'll end up having to wait a little while before we can really look at it objectively or more objectively, because again, it's all subjective.
I think two other aspects come to mind is obviously Rian Johnson would have seen what Gareth has been doing with Rogue One.
Yes. And
they'll be learning off each other and constantly communicating with each other and taking into account what we've just spoken about, i.e. the similarities between TFA and the New Hope. I said it. I'll go and wash in a minute.
You mean Star Wars?
Yeah. I think I don't think we know what's coming, and I think we're going to be knocked silly in a direction.
That would be great. I hope so.
And it's going to be nothing but positive. I've got the feeling something amazing is coming. Steve?
I can see what Dave's talking about, because if it is very much like Empire, I'm more easily broken than you guys. It would really, really put the kibosh on it for me.
It's almost like you expect it, Steve, and I'm not criticising you. I think you went in sort of with your defences up, thinking, this is going to disappoint.
I know how, at the end of the day, it's a business. We've got the magic in our brains, and the people who make it have. But somewhere there's somebody sitting at a corporate desk looking at the bottom line, and they have unfortunately, the ones that write the checks and have the last say.
But this is the problem. Sorry, Steve. This is the problem with us being like adults now. There's some. Well, yeah, I use the term very loose. There's some. I think it's cognitive dissonance in it, where we know we want to view these films like children, but now we're armed with we're wearing every item of Rob's cynical wardrobe: his pants, his hats, everything. Cynical socks. So we understand how the world works. We see it. We know it's a business. We know it's there to make money, but we want to be able to see. We don't want to have to see beyond the curtain every time we see these films. So it's kind of being able to. There's an acquired skill of switching off your brain to that stuff and just accepting this thing as a piece of art, and then letting that take you where it wants to take you.
Yeah. But it's still a good question. It's brought a lot out of us, hasn't it?
It has. I think. For my 2 pence on this subject, I think one thing is this film hasn't had much time for us all to start writing our own fiction around it. So in the downtime between Jedi and Phantom Menace, I mentioned this on the roundtable that went out today, actually. In the downtime between Jedi and the Phantom Menace, we'd all had time to write headcanon. And then when the Phantom Menace turned up...
And we had new canon as well.
Yeah. And it didn't,
at the time.
It didn't do any of that stuff. So we all went, what's this? Why did I pay for this if I got something...
Yeah.
We weren't telling ourselves that story. And it's the same thing between the end of Sith and The Force Awakens. There was a decade where we could form these stories, and we had plenty of time. Mm-hmm. Well, we had 7 years in darkness before... Lucasfilm announced they were coming back with movies, and then we all ramped up the headcanon, didn't we, and thought, this is where it's got to be. And then you get 7 seconds of Luke Skywalker. It's like, this isn't the Star Wars. We haven't had any time to do that this time.
Yeah.
It will be 2 years between movies. And it's not enough time to really get down our headcanon and have this nice big bubble for them to burst. So I think we'll be a little bit more forgiving of it. But
the films aren't made for us, are they? If we made the film, obviously I couldn't make the film, but if I was to make
systems in place to stop you.
Yeah. If I made The Force Awakens, it would be nothing like that film. It would have loads of Luke, loads of Han. Han wouldn't die. It would be a great story, a romp all the way through, going off at a different angle, ending really well, some brilliant set pieces, and it wouldn't be made for the next generation. It would be made for me.
Yeah.
Sounds crap.
Yeah, it does sound crap.
On that
Sounds
note,
just like
sitting there.
That's just
That
like
would have made
Jedi,
me
mate.
feel like a kid again.
On that note, we're just gonna cut away and get a quick word about Loot Crate, which is one of our new sponsors that we've picked up. And then when we come back, we're going to go to a voicemail from Nathan One Kenobi. Are you on a quest for epic gear, housewares, and collectibles? Loot Crate offers an epic range of pop culture items for less than $20 per month. Whether you're shopping for the geek in your life or you are that geek, Loot Crate is the best surprise you know is coming. Every month there's a different theme with new and exclusive items that you can only get with Loot Crate. Treat yourself every month or give the gift of geeking out to a friend or a loved one. Roll up your sleeves and get ready to celebrate some of pop culture's most put-together franchises. February's hands-on theme is Build and features Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Batman, Lego Dimensions, and Tetris. And as always, there's the monthly t-shirt and pin. You have until the 19th at 9 p.m. Pacific to subscribe and receive that month's crate. And when the cut-off happens, that's it, it's over. Make sure to head to lootcrate.com/TalkStarWars and enter the code TalkStarWars to save $3 off your new subscription today. Okay, let's get this voicemail thing underway then. We got a voicemail from Nathan One Kenobi this week.
Hello, Talk Star Wars. This is Nathan One Kenobi calling in with a little question. I was recently rewatching the Yoda arc from Season 6 of the Clone Wars, and I picked up on a few things that relate to Force spirits and maintaining your consciousness after death. I noticed that Qui-Gon says to Yoda on Dagobah, "You have been chosen, as I was." So I was thinking, does this mean that only those chosen, whether it be by the Force or the Force priestesses or whoever or whatever, only those chosen to maintain their consciousness after death are allowed to or able to? So that throws a whole nother dynamic into that whole concept. So I was thinking about that. And then later on, and later, I think it's in the next episode, the Force priestess says to Yoda, "You will train one who will bring balance to the Force," something along those lines. And that this whole being able to become a Force spirit or maintaining his consciousness is his reward for that. So essentially what she's saying is that his reward for training Luke is going to be this maintaining his consciousness, becoming a Force spirit. So that's a reward. So that made me think, well, Anakin is able to do this after he dies. Does that mean it's his reward for killing the Emperor, his reward for returning to the light side? Or has he been chosen? He is the chosen one. We don't usually think about it in these terms, but he is the chosen one. But was he chosen? Was he predestined to be able to do this after death? And then that brings into question, does Anakin have a purpose as a Force ghost going forward? That seems to be why Jedi are able to do this, is to fulfill some sort of purpose later on, like Qui-Gon training Yoda and Obi-Wan, and both of them training Luke. What purpose might Anakin have? Will we see that in this upcoming movies? Maybe Anakin's purpose is to somehow influence Kylo or Rey or Luke, who knows? But I thought that was interesting, and I thought that kind of threw a wrench into some of the theories we've all come up with in the past. So in that light, how do you think this affects the whole Force spirit theory? Look forward to hearing from you guys. Later.
Nathan.
Laters.
King of the epic voicemail.
That was a good one.
Right. There's a lot in here that refers to the Clone Wars, the animated TV show. So obviously I know we're not all familiar with that. But how does this sit with you? Paul, let's start with you. Force ghosts. Individual Jedi being chosen by the Force to be able to exist beyond their death.
I'm not here.
Did he BRB in the chat?
I didn't see it.
No, likewise.
Hello, sorry.
Had you muted?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry. I've lost my train of thought as well. Isn't it
Ask
something
the
they
question
learn?
again, Mark.
It's something they learn.
Yeah. So you don't.
Have I got a delay as well?
No, not at all, mate. Not at all. No, sorry, I was just making a note of the time code so I can tidy that up.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, no, it's the best of my. I thought it was something they learned. Sidious taught Vader, but would later obviously be Anakin, and Yoda taught Ben, and I thought it was something they learned.
Mm-hmm. It is. You're absolutely right. It is something they learn. I like
that idea better, though.
What, that they are selected?
Yeah, because like when you
a bit more romantic.
Yeah, it is, and it's a bit like the M word, isn't it? Not moron. We've got over that. The other M word. Like it takes all the. When you kind of think they can learn it, well, it's like, well, anyone technically could learn it because the Force is in everyone. So, but having the Force as an entity that actually says, "You've done my will, so I'm going to let you go to heaven," which is the analogy we're kind of talking about, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Is kind of much more, kind of out there and makes you think a bit more. I do prefer Nathan's idea than the learning thing. So I'm with Paul on that.
Okay, that's very. Okay, Rob, let's hear from you, and then I'll mention something that popped up in some canon media recently.
Okay, I like a bit of both. I like the idea that it's something you can learn, but if you're not compatible for whatever reason, I don't know how. I know what I mean.
I think I know where you're going with that.
The Force has got to allow you to learn it almost.
Pretty much, yeah. And if you're not, then it doesn't matter how much you try, it's just never going to click for you. It's like, I don't know, learning an instrument or something.
Yes, exactly. It's like... sorry.
Let me get this straight, Rob. So you like a bit of both, but you like to be compatible. Mm-hmm. And if you don't like it, you don't like to be forced.
After dark side.
Pretty much, yeah. I don't see any problem with that.
I think.
Well, I'm just noting it down.
Yeah, no. Point me to the bit that was incorrect, and
Rob, would you say it's like this is almost like a subjective piece of dialogue, really, with the Force priestesses saying that you were chosen, or Qui-Gon saying that you were chosen, is another way of saying you're more adept at this, and that's why Yoda is on the council. That's why he's the most powerful Jedi.
Yeah,
that's the same reason Mace is on the council, and Qui-Gon and what have you. It's because they are naturally more adept at it. The cream has risen to the top, so to speak. Now, if you got a Jedi apprentice on day one and said to him, right, learn this blue ghost thing, he might not even know where to start. But these guys, they're acolytes. They're so knowledgeable of the Force that being able to take it to the next level from a certain point of view would make them look like a chosen few, the elite. That might be, I mean, we're playing, there's some semantics in there, but it could be that they're more elite, and so they look like they've been chosen as a select few, the chosen people. But
do you think you can only become a Force ghost if you're not lactose intolerant? Because
of the cream thing?
No, because of the blue milk, and then you can become a blue ghost.
Oh, is that what it is it? It's the blue milk that gives them their blue glow.
That's it.
It's like a forced version of Ready Break.
That is exactly right.
In Ahsoka, and I discussed this recently, we get a little passage which is dedicated to Obi-Wan, which is Obi-Wan actually learning, sort of drilling himself how to get through these barriers and reach deeper into the Force to try and connect with Qui-Gon. And is rewarded at the end with Qui-Gon's voice saying Obi-Wan. So he had to learn that. It wasn't like somebody just said to him, well, you're tonight's special contestant, Obi-Wan Kenobi, come on down. He had to work at it. And that's why Yoda gave him the skills he needed to go and practice whilst they are in exile. So there's an element of having to learn it about it, but maybe from the Force priestess point of view and from Qui-Gon's point of view, these few acolytes are the chosen few.
Yeah, maybe.
As a semantic argument. I think that's as close as we're going to get, are we? Without more, because there's not enough really in canon at the moment, I would think, to build much more around this right now.
There is that, yeah.
The Ahsoka, the bit in the Ahsoka novel to me was the most revealing piece of text in that book about existing canon as it relates to this. But Great question, Nathan. You certainly are one of the acolytes up there. Nice one. Okay, we got a question from...
Drinking your blue milk.
Get ready, Rob. We got a question from Joe Crouch.
Another question from Joe Crouch. Yeah. Wow, he's no slouch.
In bed.
Steve, stop giving him that little...
You just take it. You find
Mark,
the face to make it wrong.
Can
Steve.
you time code this?
Yeah.
Right.
He's no slouch in bed.
Steve.
It's Jerry Maguire. It's
Steve,
innocent.
Can you take the pillow out of your mouth, please?
I haven't got the pillow in my mouth. That would infer that I'm taking something bad that I don't want.
You sound like you've got something in there.
I've got a cat in my face.
You are very, very muffled,
and
Stephen.
Someone's got
hang
a
on
bee
a minute.
There's a bee buzzing around.
Is that better?
That's
the cat
better.
was laying on the mic.
Oh, you didn't notice that?
No.
A bit of lint, I might expect. A droplet of gravy, I could expect.
Steve, sometimes look at the chat.
I'm pulling the thing out, and she's a Burmese. They do not take lightly to being moved. I might get scratched.
Right, Steve, are you in the position to read Joe's question?
Yes. She's gone.
That didn't sound convincing.
No,
Actually, leave this in.
I am. I'm ready now. The cat's gone. She's got the ump and gone.
Keep it clean because I'm leaving this in. All right, go for it, Steve.
She's gone.
We got a question from Joe Crouch again this week. People can make their own little cognitive edits. Yeah, go for it, mate.
Hi, guys. Hope you are well. Hope you're all well. So I'm up to date with Rebels at the time of writing, and the wait for more episodes in the coming weeks is agonising. So to alleviate this, here's a Rebels-themed question. Not one for me, though. Obviously, I'm reading this because I won't know any of the answers. There's a lot of chatter on Rebels, Star Wars Rebels in general, but recently I've been seeing a few posts trying to compare Ezra's journey into a somewhat middling interpretation of the Force with that of Galen Marrak's from the now non-canon Force Unleashed series. Since the comparison between Kanan and Kyle Katarn has a lot of supporters, it seems like fans are holding out hope for Galen Marrak's repurposing into another character in canon seems likely. There's even comparisons between Kanan and Galen Marrak's blind Jedi mentor Ram Kota, and with Ezra's new haircut now making him look even more like an angry Galen Marrak and less like Space Aladdin, the link seems like they're begging to be discussed. I think they obviously couldn't put Marrak straight back in canon as, let's face it, he was a bit overpowered, but my fondness for the original tale of Darth Vader's secret apprentice gives me hope that this tale has been rejigged and distilled into Ezra. What are your thoughts on this? May the Force be with you, Joe. Now, I think I did an awesome job.
You did an incredible job.
Very well.
Congratulations.
I understand a single word of it.
And Joe, this question wins a prize for being awesome. This just
rather awesome.
Got my juices flowing. Rob, do you want to bring everyone up to speed with who Galen Marrak is? Right.
So Galen Marrak, for those who are not familiar, is the protagonist of the Force Unleashed video games. So he's picked up on, I can't remember, is it Kashyyyk?
I think it is Kashyyyk, yeah.
He's picked up on Kashyyyk by Vader, and rather than wipe him out, Vader realizes that he's incredibly powerful, and he takes him under his wing and in secret trains him up with the plan to one day overthrow the Emperor. They are now legends, hence the question, really, hence the allusion to this stuff. But they were, it told an excellent story. And actually, what's interesting is the stuff that the story group are doing in new canon seems to be indirectly replacing the legends and kind of going with a similar theme. So Rogue One replaced Dark Forces as to how they got the Death Star plans to the Rebels,
which was
and they had a couple of characters who were kind of a little bit like Kyle Katarn and Jan Ors in Cassian and Jyn Erso. I wouldn't say they're. I mean, again, that's one of those ones where it's like you can see there might be some sort of allusions to it as a kind of fan service nod, but I think you'd be hard pressed to make the argument that they're a straight replacement, because they're simply not. In the same way, Starkiller, as he's known in Force Unleashed, is the catalyst to start the rebellion. Spoilers for Force Unleashed 1. because Force Unleashed. I'm sure it's Force Unleashed 1. And actually, his family in the Legends, his family crest was the symbol that was used for the Rebel Alliance. Obviously, they've replaced that in Rebels with
the Phoenix,
with the Phoenix stuff. But it's interesting that they're kind of subtly replacing things.
So this works, doesn't it?
To a point. I mean, I don't see him becoming an apprentice to Vader.
You don't see Ezra becoming, no?
No. I think, to be honest, he's kind of... admittedly, I'm a little bit behind on Rebels, but from my kind of experiences of it, he doesn't seem to be... If he's going to go off, he's going to go off in his own direction. He's kind of getting a bit sick of everybody. He gets, I get the impression he's kind of a bit sick of everybody being around, kind of trying to guide him one way or the other.
Yeah, he does.
So I feel like he'd sort of reject it all and go off in his own way, much like Ahsoka did.
Yeah, what I'm hearing from the recent episodes would support that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he would. I think he would see. He would see Ahsoka's path as the one to go for, but maybe not with the kind of mentality of I'm going to help people. It might be more of a more like a dark side mentality. But I don't see him going to become somebody else's apprentice. I think he's probably going to start going his own way.
He's walked that path a little bit with Maul, hasn't he? But Maul even refers to him as my apprentice.
Yeah, and it drives him up. And it drives him up the wall,
teasing him a little bit towards the dark side. And there's definitely something going on there with Ezra. And I love what Joe's kind of pointing towards here, that maybe Ezra could become Vader's dark apprentice, a secret apprentice, in the way that, like you were saying, Starkiller was in those games. Which is great. I would love that if they go that way. I think it might rob the character that children have held up as their hero for however long that show runs.
There is that.
But just for a second, consider the possibility that Vader did have an apprentice, a secret apprentice, and it's Snoke. It doesn't, whether or not it's Ezra. This was what Joe's question unlocked for me.
Okay.
That what if that is a thing that they're going to do? Like you just said, Rob, they're recanonizing a lot of these elements now, but they're using them in very different ways. But they know that they're good. They know that they work because they've had an audience and they've been celebrated. So bringing in the concept that Vader had a secret apprentice that he was going to use to overthrow Palpatine, right up until the point Luke entered the game, would fuel Snoke's hatred of Luke and could explain some of those wounds that Snoke's got and why Snoke watched the Empire rise and fall from the shadows.
Yeah.
Because he was being hidden by Vader. It's very possible. Do you not think? Guys, what do you think?
It's entirely plausible.
Paul, what do you think of the prospect of Vader having a secret apprentice? You might be muted.
I'm not muted.
Okay.
It's actually quite exciting, to be honest.
It's a fantastic idea, isn't it?
Yeah. Because they're kind of toying with it spiritually with Kylo already, aren't they? It's Kylo's sort of want to be that person, but the idea that it actually happens is something else.
Yeah, why would Kylo idolise Vader so much if he, you could explain it away as he's been told all these tales by Vader's former dark secret apprentice, the Snoke Meister General. Steve?
I think it's an interesting idea. I don't understand all the nuance behind it, but I think it'd be cool.
No, but it's really deep canon. I think, Rob, you deserve a standing ovation for being able to plough through all that stuff so intelligently. It is a deep cut, Steve, but on the top of it is this prospect that maybe not the kid from the animated series becoming Snoke, but what if Snoke was Vader's secret apprentice?
What, even back in the original trilogy?
Yeah, way back when. Hiding out in the castle that we've just met on Mustafar.
Does the time work? It does.
It does, because it would put Snoke at about the same age as Luke.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell how old he is at the moment, isn't it? Because of the scarring.
Because of the state.
Would that account for how Kylo got the helmet?
Possibly. I mean, it could be like a dark pilgrim.
Maybe Snake bought him with that helmet.
Do you want to call him Snoke and not Snake?
No, did I say Snake?
You did. You said Snake a little bit.
Well,
But
I meant Snoke.
That's fine. We'll give you a pass. You've got a cat sitting somewhere on your head or face. It could be, that
There's so many puns in there.
maybe Snoke went off on a dark pilgrimage to collect,
To retrieve Kylo's helmet.
retrieve the remains of his master.
Yeah, and gave it to Kylo, and maybe that, like the lightsaber had an effect on Rey, the helmet had an effect on Kylo.
I think that is somewhere in canon, isn't it, Rob?
What's that? Sorry.
That Kylo's getting something off of Vader's helmet.
This is too much.
If you're gonna laugh in a juvenile manner, please mute it so I can pretend to be serious.
I don't know. I can't think. No, I maybe. If there is, I'm not familiar. I'm not familiar enough with it to be sure. To be honest.
Okay.
Well, he obviously got something out of the helmet, didn't he? Because he was coveting Vader's helmet in that dish with the earth in it.
Yeah. I tell you what. One thing I'll say about Joe's question.
Actually, sorry, Rob. Before we go to,
that's fine.
That's a common misconception that Vader's helmet was in the pot of ashes, because it wasn't. Vader's helmet was on a clean plinth. Kylo puts his helmet in a vat of his enemy's ashes. But I've heard a number of people misremember that, unless I'm getting it completely wrong. But I'm pretty sure
I think you're right.
I'm pretty sure Vader's helmet is on a clean plinth, and Kylo puts his own in the pot of ashes.
Mark, don't forget, Mark. Some people were asking the Rogue One writers where the Bothans were, so it's easily done.
Oh, of course it is. Yeah, absolutely.
And it would make your helmet very dirty if you put it in ashes.
Okay, I think we're probably going to move on from all the helmet talk now. But Joe, that question was staggering, and I think even though it came from Reddit, which I often like to ignore, I think there's a lot in there that we can watch carefully now to see how it plays out, especially with Ezra, to see what they're going to do. Definitely got to do something with that character. But I'm more intrigued at the concept of Vader having a secret apprentice, and that may or may not turn out to be Snoke. That'd be awesome. Okay, one more to go. This is going to be a bit of a special section, this one. It was suggested by Stacey White in the Facebook group.
Yes.
Because Spencer floated a very brief question, and Stacey suggested that we have a bit of a listener kind of feedback section where everyone gets to pipe in. So maybe we'll each take a reaction, shall we?
Sure.
Okay, so this is the question from Spencer Berry. He said, if there was anything that you could make canon, what would it be? Thumbs up. And Stacey suggested, as I said, that we get the listeners involved with this listener comms in a section called listener feedback. So Stacey's reaction was that Rey is Luke and Mara Jade's daughter. So Mara Jade being brought back into canon.
It's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah, exactly. That's from the original Thrawn trilogy, is it?
Is it really?
Is she from that?
Sorry?
Is Mara Jade from that, or is?
Yeah, she was introduced in. So she was introduced in Heir to the Empire, and then she was retconned into Return of the Jedi by that series. She was basically. They sort of wrote it in that she was in Jabba's palace trying to get to Luke.
Right.
Which was at the time it was just wonderful.
What's she called, Rey, in that?
Who?
No, she was called Mara Jade.
We're talking about two different people.
Oh, Mara Jade.
Yeah.
I've read it at the Empire. It's the only non-canon thing I've ever read.
Okay.
I've not read any canon either.
Well, it's nice that you retained about 1.5% of it too. That's
yeah.
I definitely remember reading a book. Show off.
Stacey, I like the idea. That would be the thing I brought back. Would be Mara Jade. I think.
I wouldn't. I mean, I would bring back Mara Jade, but I wouldn't necessarily want Rey to be their child for reasons I've highlighted before. Mm-hmm. But I would happily have Mara Jade back because she's awesome.
Yeah, and the argument you make for not having Rey be that child is certainly solid. That she needs to be an original character that stands on her own and doesn't depend on hand-me-down qualities from characters that came before.
Yeah.
All right, Dave Donovan. I think I might as well just. They're so brief. I might as well just read them.
Yeah, brief. Yeah.
So Dave Donovan's comment to Spencer's question was Plagueis. So he says,
I'm guessing he means the book, right?
Plagueis jumps to mind first of all. Yeah, because the actual character of Plagueis is canon, isn't he? So I think he means the
character's canon.
The book. Is it called Plagueis?
Yes.
Yeah. So the events of that, but that would be with Plagueis being the Mune. Is that right? He's a Mune character. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm on board with that.
I'll be right with that.
Nathan Roberts sent in another voicemail in response to Spencer's Facebook question. So this is that.
Right.
Hello, Talk Star Wars. This is Nathan Wan Kenobi calling in response to Spencer's question as to what one thing would I bring from the EU to the new canon if I could. And I think, given that my experience with the EU, I have a fair amount of knowledge about the EU, but I haven't read a lot of the books. I haven't read a lot of the comics. I don't have a lot of experience with the EU. But I have played the Republic Commandos video game. I think there was only one. There might have been two, but I know I played the first one, and I really enjoyed it. It was great. You really got down to the trenches, fighting droids and Geonosians and all this crazy stuff as these Republic Commando clone troopers, and they were so badass. They were really cool. They were diverse. They each had their skills and their specialties. It was a really interesting group, a really interesting dynamic, as most of the clone dynamics are in Star Wars. So based on that and the little snippets we saw of them in the Clone Wars TV series, there was a part where they were coming off the ship. They were searching for someone. I don't remember exactly what the story was. And then, of course, there's a story of Gregor, who later turns up in Rebels. He was a Republic Commando. So really interesting potential, I think, there. I'm sure they were executed well in the EU. They seem to be much beloved by people who have read the books and things. But as for me, they just have a lot of potential. And I think they would do really well in the new canon. So yeah, that's the question answered from my perspective. So take care, guys. May the Force be with you.
That's awesome. Republic Commandos. Nice. I like that idea as well, and I'd like to see it in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul, I know you're
Catherine Bigelow.
Yes, we've said this before. Paul, you're a big fan of that idea, aren't you? Watching the troops, like the clone troops, go to war.
Bring it on.
Bring it well and truly on. Okay,
go epic,
on, baby.
Yeah, go epic.
Okay, one more reaction to Spencer's question was from.
I've just seen it.
Robert Phillips.
Yeah, I just read it.
Boba Fett getting out of the Sarlacc pit. So he's put. I know Lucas has confirmed it before selling to Disney, but I'd love the Boba Fett story of Dengar getting him back on his feet and those two going out and kicking some bottom, like Johan Silent Bob. Only instead of dick and fart jokes, and the Stoner.
Sorry. Ass was a problem, but we could drop D bombs like there's no tomorrow.
Time code.
That's Richard. It's Richard. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we'll just let that go. Like a Stoner comedy, but with grit and a bit like an anti-hero bromance. That way, Boba doesn't need to speak a lot, and you'd get a good Cockney actor for Dengar. I think I could take that role personally. Mark from Talk Star Wars as Dengar. Look at that in the credits.
Your Wolford's really coming out of you, Mark.
Probably doesn't appeal to the masses, as Boba is a bad guy. As I've said before, bad guys can and do win. You just need a badder guy to be the protagonist. Now that is wisdom right there. Yeah, you can have Boba in there as long as there's always a bigger fish.
Yeah.
That's great stuff. Yeah, all right. I'm up for that.
Do we have a quick one we're going to do with our own?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, let's do a round table. So we'll start with you then. Rob, what do you think of this? What would you bring back to canon?
The Darth Bane trilogy. So we got Darth Bane still canon, because obviously he's in Clone Wars, but I'd bring back the trilogy of books that sort of deal with his history and go into a bit more depth about his what's it called? About his rise and his grabbing of power. Mm-hmm. I would bring those back.
Sorry, did you say in book form?
Not necessarily. I mean, I'd quite happily go for a TV series instead. But yeah, at the very least, I would bring them back.
Yeah, that sounds good. Guys, have you got anything? I mean, canon Legends is probably a bit off your radar, isn't it?
Well, I'd like to bring Thrawn back as he was in Heir to the Empire.
Okay.
Because he was fantastic in that.
Well, we might be there's a Thrawn book out in a couple of months. So
that's going to be
and
how he gets into Rebels, I think.
And it's Zahn as well, though, isn't it? So I don't know how much of the spirit of the original story he can fold into this new telling.
I don't think he can bring any in.
No. I'm not, because I'm not familiar with the original, so I don't know how much room there is for him to play.
Because he filled the hole of, obviously, in the absence of Vader and the Emperor, he filled a really good bad guy hole in that book. Because otherwise it would have been, you needed an antagonist of that level, didn't you?
Yeah,
protagonist.
And he was really good. Isn't antagonist the bad one?
Oh,
antagonist
sorry,
is the bad one, yeah.
So, excuse me, sorry.
That's all right. You're forgiven. So that was my bit. Thank you very much. I am doing evenings and weekends and bar mitzvahs, so book me if you can.
All right, we're going to go to a quick break off the back of Steve advertising himself there, and we're going to hear a little advert, and then when we come back, we're going to get into Connor's Corner. If you'd like to support what we do here at Talk Star Wars, you can do so by becoming a TSW sponsor. For as little as £1 per month given securely via PayPal, you can help us keep the lights on here at TSW. When you become a TSW sponsor, we will elevate you to VIP status. As a TSW VIP, you'll get access to an exclusive stream that provides you with fun downloads like HD wallpapers for your desktop, tablet and mobile device, ringtones and text alerts courtesy of our very own audio Jedi at Rob Wade Vision. You'll also receive a monthly newsletter with news about what's going on here at Talk Star Wars, and you'll get a priority release of the new Star Wars audio commentary series called TSW Feature Comms. All this for as little as £1 per month. Head to talkstarwars.co.uk/support and become a TSW sponsor today, and the Force will be with you always.
And we're back. So as you've just heard, you can become a Talk Star Wars sponsor and join our VIP program. I always get that. Struggle with that one. VIP program by visiting talkstarwars.co.uk/support. So, as is customary, after hearing that particular spot, it's time for Connor's Corner featuring Leo. So, Connor writes thusly: Hello, gents. I hope things are well with you all and you've had a good week. Last week was really great hearing what you guys are looking forward to this year. It was really interesting. Thanks for that. Great stuff. Anyway, but I'm sure by now you fine gentlemen have discussed the title for episode 8 and speculated on what it means. Why is it red? When you think we'll get a trailer, etc. After last week's show and Ad's question about Woody the Cowboy starring in the Solo movie, it got me to thinking. We've talked in the past about who we'd like to see direct Star Wars films, which is always interesting to hear. This leads me to ask, who would you like to see star in a future Star Wars film saga or standalone project? Me personally, I'd like to see Gary Oldman in some kind of role. I can't wait to hear where this goes because of that usual Talk Star Wars curveball that sneaks in and makes us go, oh, I like that. Rob usually. Oh, thanks, guys. So by the time we hear this, the listeners will have hopefully heard the first episode of the Roundtable podcast, and it seems like the perfect time to say a massive thank you for including me. And I'm sure I speak for my Commonwealth brother Adam. We had such a great time chatting with you guys. If the listeners enjoy it half as much as we enjoyed doing it, they're in for a treat. Your friend Connor, proud knight of the Commonwealth, smuggled to you by YT 1300F light freighter. What a lovely, lovely...
That sentiment. Last part was a lovely sentiment, it does set us up nicely to say that as we are recording this, episode 2 of the Roundtable is being recorded elsewhere.
It's basically time zones apart, but it's going to be happening later.
Yeah. The concept being every month we will gather, or Robert Cast, who hosts that show, will be gathering members of the Star Wars Commonwealth in terms of podcast hosts and members of the listenership, we're calling them knights, gather them around a table and podcast together about Star Wars. So if you want to dip your toe into podcasting, he's your man. You can send us applications to get onto the show to talkstarwarsinfo@gmail.com and I'll fire them over to Rob, or you can hit him up directly on Twitter at RobertMMCast. That was a good show and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
It was great. Yeah, it was so much fun.
I've listened to it a couple of times now because obviously it goes out on a priority release to the VIPs. So you just heard the advert for becoming a TSW sponsor. That's one of the perks, is you get a priority release of that show as soon as it hits. So if you are on it, you'll get to hear it within a day or so. Otherwise, it will be coming out at the end of the month, around the time they record the next one. So you've got this thing going. It's a bit like a podcasting sweatshop. Anyway.
Indeed.
Let's get to Connor's wonderful question then, Rob.
Okay.
Who would you like to see star in a Star Wars movie?
Let me see.
We have kicked this one around before, I think.
We have. I'm trying to think. So I know what I said last time, and actually this came up on Twitter with Tumbling Saber back and forth a couple of days ago because they were talking about a live-action Rebels cast.
Ah, yes.
It was a great discussion, and it got my brain going as well. Admittedly, most of their picks I kind of agreed with. What I was annoyed about is they missed out Thrawn, and I replied back and said Gary Sinise.
Yes, you said that previously as well, haven't you?
Yeah, that was last time.
That is a good call. But I personally think that my answer to this, actually, in part, would be to port the Rebels voice cast over wholesale to live action, because I think they could all pull it off.
Okay, nice.
I think they could all do it really well, including Thrawn, because the gentleman, I forget his first name, is Mads Mikkelsen's brother, isn't it? That plays Thrawn.
Yes.
He is incredible in live action. He was in House of Cards. He's a phenomenal actor.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, I'd put them all over.
Yeah, so who else? I'm trying to think if there's anybody else I'd put in. I would... It's tough, isn't it?
It is. I mean,
the brain goes all over the place.
There's too many options. To me, I would think maybe because the other guys are about to jump off the call very briefly, but should we take a female actor and a male actor? I was just thinking of female actors, and I was trying to think who. The trouble is, I'm trying to think who I'd have them. Would I bring them in to play an existing character, or would I have them play something new? And my brain's just kind of overwhelmed with choices, really. Well, but then at the same time, some of them you get, I think in Benicio, but he's on his way in. He's on his way into it, yeah. What
exactly.
About Kate Blanchett? She would be my choice for a lady, because she's wonderful, and she's wonderful in everything she does. Even when the project isn't great, she still nails it every time. Yeah, and she's got this. I mean, I'm referencing Galadriel from the Lord of the Rings, but she's got this wonderful ethereal quality about her that just fits, to my mind, in Star Wars.
Yeah, I kind of go with that. Yeah, she would be very good. Who else is there that might be good? I feel like Naomi Harris could easily slot in.
Oh yeah, she's great too.
Yeah, I like her quite a bit. And also, she's a good actress. So who else is there?
Oh my. What about for dudes? I've just seen...
Charlize as well. Charlize would be good.
Yeah, she's very good.
And she'd be great. I tell you what, she'd be great as... If they ever did the Jedi Academy books, she'd make a great Admiral Daala.
What about... I don't know the character, so I can't really comment on that with any degree of authority. But what about Charlize Theron as Asajj Ventress? If we do a standalone film,
oh, that would be great. Because that rings a bell. Like we've floated that idea before.
Maybe we did.
That would be great.
Because when you mentioned her name, I immediately go now to Mad Max, to Furiosa, because she was so. Okay. That role is it's indelible. And she has an energy that I could see porting across to the Asajj Ventress character quite well.
Yeah.
And she's got...
I think, right.
She's deadly and she's beautiful at the same time, isn't she? So,
yeah, absolutely. I could really go for that one. I could go for either, to be honest.
Colin Farrell?
Colin Farrell.
I've just seen him in The Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them.
Okay.
And he had such presence. There's a scene in it that... I felt he owned the screen, and it wasn't even his scene, but he was just in there, and it gave me. It was almost like a Vader-esque place he had in the scene, in the frame, and it was larger than life. And I kind of thought he can be intimidating without really, and he can be miles away from him intimidating if he wants to be. But
yeah, that
would be an awesome quality to have in Star Wars. Somebody as dark as that.
Yeah, indeed. Trying to think of about male actors.
Disney like Depp.
I like Depp, but I don't know. I feel like he's kind of played the kind of character I want him to play. Is Jack Sparrow, and he's been doing that ever since he played Jack Sparrow.
Yeah.
I did think of one just now, actually. You know, William Peterson.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
I'd like to see him come in as. So for those who aren't familiar, he's the original in Manhunter. He played Will Graham, and he's also most commonly known for Grissom on CSI, the original Vegas one. I could see him in as a kind of elderly Jedi.
Yeah, that'd be good. Oh, we did. We mentioned Ian McKellen before, didn't we? So Ian, as a venerable Jedi at some point.
Yeah,
in these movies.
I can see that.
Well, I guess you could probably pick most of the cast from Lord of the Rings and drag them in, couldn't you?
Probably. I think Channing Tatum might do a good. You know, he can play a kind of. You know, he's quite obviously quite a big dude. He's quite a tough guy, but he also plays good comedy characters, and I think you need somebody who can do a bit of that in Star Wars. So he might be a good fit.
But when you said that, actually, the first thing I thought of was the Han Solo movie.
And funny enough, actually, that was what I was thinking too. Obviously, it'd be like hench Solo.
Hench Solo, yeah. I mean, obviously not as a lead character, but he has that kind of energy that I could imagine him being in amongst all the scallywags and the scoundrels doing their thing. Yeah,
agreed.
I think we've got a nice little group together there.
Yeah. What about Ed Norton?
Yeah, I like Ed Norton very, very much, and as an actor, I think he's fantastic. But he does create some issues on productions, from what I can gather.
Oh, really? Okay.
It can be a bit of a. I mean, maybe it's not true, but the Hulk really suffered from some of the prima donna activity on that set.
It's again, I can just sort of picture him with, you know, kind of neatly trimmed beard and sort of short hair. I can picture him in a kind of Jedi robe or something like that.
Do you know what? I would like to see some characters come back as well. Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor to come back in their roles. Qui-Gon obviously as a Force ghost, but Ewan as the man.
Obviously,
in his downtime. I would like that very much. Okay, that's awesome. I think I'm sorry, Connor. I'm sorry the guys weren't around to throw in their 2 bits because they had to go away and make a couple of phone calls. But maybe we'll run it past them again at some point. All right, I've got an extra little feature you may have seen on the show notes this week. There, Rob. Donovan's Dark Corner. I sometimes wake up to emails or tweets from Dave Donovan, our friend Dave Poe Donovan. Obviously, he can't sleep, and his mind's running away with him, and I get these streams of consciousness that come through. I just think they're delightful. So I thought I'd just stitch them all together this week and throw them in the show notes. So this is the first and possibly only episode of Donovan's Dark Corner. So this came directly from the man himself. So Dave's theory number 27362837. Inverted poetry.
Right.
Last thing we see in Rogue One is a father standing on a precipice in the darkness watching his daughter escape. Both of them unknowing. Leia's escape means hope. Snatching victory out of Vader's dark.
Right.
The last thing we see in The Force Awakens is a father, and I'm going to put that in inverted commas there, standing on a precipice in the light, watching his daughter, and again, inverted commas, return. Both of them knowing. Rey's return means despair, thrusting defeat into Luke's light. Things that keep me up. Poe Donovan. There's his little sign off from that email.
I'm not surprised.
So immediately after that, I get a PS email. Dave, I'm not mocking you. I'm celebrating you.
No, I love it.
To explain the last bit of the inverse, Vader and Leia never see each other in that final moment and are unaware of each other and unaware that they are connected. Luke and Rey do see each other in the final moment and immediately are both aware of their connection. So it's an inside-out job. Makes sense? And then there was another email straight after that, which is an amendment. Leia's escape could mean the destruction of everything Vader and the Empire have worked so hard to build. Absolutely does. And she could destroy it all, and she absolutely does. Rey's return could mean the growth and continuing of everything Luke has worked to find out and save and pass on to the new Jedi Order. She could help build it all again. Dave Poe Donovan. So see why I included these 3 emails together now, because that last sentence, or that last paragraph, incredible insight. Yes. And I think he might be onto something with this inverse poetry thing. Maybe not a direct reference to Rogue One, but that thing that he's put there, Rey's return could mean growth and the continuing of everything. Luke has worked hard to... So even though she's passing the saber to Luke, I think he's passing the mantle of the Jedi onto her.
That could... I mean, that's... Yeah, that part of it is great. It's really, really powerful stuff. There is a lot of assumption there. There are many conclusions that are not so much jumped to as Olympic level leapt to. Yeah,
that's why I put them in inverted commas.
Yeah, because, you know, like I say, I'm not convinced so much on the on that. So make it that way you will, I guess. Yeah. I like the sort of the way he's framed it.
The symmetry is definitely there. It's undeniable that Leia and Vader at the end of Rogue One, it's exactly as he's written down. The father and the daughter, and she goes off and she uses everything to bring him down.
Yep.
And we've got this young lady now returning, or maybe not returning, but this young lady arriving to Luke, ready to take the baton from him. So there is some symmetry there in a way, but it's also there is some symmetry between Rey's journey and Luke's journey.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, you know, like I say, it's definitely onto something with the kind of the imagery of how somebody so seemingly innocuous can bring about such significant change.
Yeah, like a tiny woman in white.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
I mean, admittedly, we could talk about this for hours, I think, but admittedly, what brought the Empire down was a collection of those little women in white, wasn't it? You did have this tiny little, this little Senate member who was on a diplomatic mission. She was the first domino to fall, and then you get the grizzled, old, world-weary Jedi that's been living in the wastelands for 2 decades.
Yeah.
He was the second domino to fall. Then you get the hapless farm boy that knows nothing, that spent his time staring off into the horizon, waiting for something to happen to him. He's the next domino to fall. You got the allegiance that Han Solo is suddenly filled with, the place of belonging, all that. These things all stitched together. It's a tapestry of things that brought down the Empire. Doesn't ever really come down to any one thing in particular, does it?
Yeah.
It's all these things that work in concert. But Dave, I love your streams of consciousness. I like when I wake up and there's a bunch of tweets in my inbox and I see that from you, I know that I need to get a coffee and sit down and pay attention.
You're in for something special.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Dave. Okay, you, Twitter poll results. So last week's Twitter poll we put out during the recording was, could any characters from Rogue One appear in Han Solo? And if they could, who would you like to see on screen with Han and Lando? I put 4 options out, as I do every week. Option 1 was Chirrut Imwe and Baze. Option 2 was Cassian and K2SO. 3 was Darth Vader. And option 4 was Dr. Evazan and Ponda Baba. Now, I only put that in there
as a gag,
because I know how much people dislike their appearance in Rogue One. But it was actually more popular than Chirrut Imwe and Baze.
Which is just goes to show we don't even know what we want when we want it.
No, exactly.
We don't deserve nice things.
We shouldn't have them. The poll reached 1,119 people, so it was a bit weaker than normal. I did run it for a slightly shorter period than previous polls. And 45% of people thought that Cassian and K2SO would be their choice. So just to be clear, it was about their choice and not who we think. But I do also think that that's quite likely, that Cassian will be the one that appears.
I think there seems to be rumblings about that already, aren't there?
Well, he made a comment, didn't he, on the red carpet somewhere about he was asked directly, "Will you appear in Han Solo?" And he made a joke. I think he was joking, but it did make it seem very much like he may actually have something.
We know what the websites are like with taking something that might not be anything and running with it. Hence the Woody Harrelson stories that are doing the rounds.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. That is such clickbait.
I can understand why people think it's definitive, but at the same time, I would disagree wholeheartedly that it's definitive. That's all.
It was so. I wrote a piece about it immediately and put it up on Talk Star Wars. It was such a clumsy question, and it was asked in such a way as to be incredibly confusing. I think the person asking the question even confused herself.
Yeah, that's the impression I got too.
And there was a lot of noise in that studio, wasn't there? A lot of people chattering on at Woody at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like it's also. I mean, I think it's in the story. I think she even said, "Are you playing that Gareth Shrike character?" Mm-hmm. So he could interpret that as, "Are you doing somebody who's filling that role?"
Yeah, are you playing that archetype? Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be that character directly. So I was talking about this with Joe Crouch, he ain't no slouch, the other day, and he kind of looked at it as definitive until I said to him, "Well, no, hang on." We sort of went back and forth on it a bit, and we kind of compromised on the idea that it seems like it's entirely plausible, but it's not by any means definitive. Yeah. And I said, there's no reason why it can't be somebody who's very similar but in all but name, and not be specifically him, but kind of again fill that role.
Yeah,
it's hard to say.
It is hard to say. I just think it was an unfair sort of ambush in a way. Mm-hmm. Really. He's not there to talk about that. No, and it does show that Woody really needs to up his game when it comes to fending off this kind of thing, because he's going to be dealing with this for a long time now.
He's not on Twitter, is he?
I haven't seen him yet. But
no.
All right, let's get on to this week's Twitter poll. So, obviously, we know the title for Star Wars Episode 8. We haven't discussed it yet, but Star Wars Episode 8 is called The Last Jedi.
It is.
So who will be the Last Jedi referenced in the new Star Wars Episode 8 title? You can quote for another option. Will it be Luke? Will it be Rey? Will it be Kylo Ren? Or will it be Snoke? Have fun with that. We're going to pin it to our...
Interesting.
We're going to... Yeah. I mean, I have to have 4 options in my polls.
I know.
So sometimes...
Nonetheless, it's interesting.
Some of them are a bit of a curveball.
Yes.
I am going to throw this out now for 6 days and some change, and it will be pinned to our profile. So you guys can go and place your bets. That is ready now. Okay, so this week's big news story, and the only news story that we're going to run with in this episode, is the announcement of Star Wars Episode 8's actual title, no longer to be known as Space Bears. It is actually called The Last Jedi. So what do we make of this title? We'll get into the nitty-gritty specifics of the colouring and what have you and all that in a bit, but what do we think of the title? What's your first reaction, Rob?
Straight off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
I hated it when I first heard it.
Really?
But then now I really like it. And the reason why I hated it was because...
You're fickle.
I'm a neg ferret. And I tend to err on the side of negativity rather than a glass half full type of guy. And I'm trying to change, but my therapist says, "Oh, you ain't paid me." And I said, "Well, I ain't got a therapist." And he went, "Oh, I'll leave then." But that's another story. I did like it eventually. There you go. I should have just gone with that.
Yeah. That was the movie The Road to get to that punchline.
But I want to go into the nitty gritty about the red and the stuff, but we'll talk about that in a minute, shall we?
Yes, yeah. Rob, your initial reaction?
Yes. I was blown away by how unceremoniously it was announced. It was really just kind of, there you go.
They did the same with The Force Awakens.
They did, but I thought they'd make a bit more of a song and dance about it this time, because it's Episode 8 and it's more kind of, there's a certain anticipation around it. I thought they'd actually really kind of drive it home, but no, it was delivered again with a kind of, there you go.
Yeah.
I like it. I still, I liked it when I first heard it, and I still like it. I don't know. I haven't sort of found myself going, oh, it's the best name ever, and I love it and stuff. But at the same time, I haven't been vitriolically opposed to it. So I like it. It's a good name, a strong name.
Yeah, I liked it.
Intriguing name.
I liked it straight off the bat. I think I was driving when it was released.
Yeah,
which is
I remember
typical.
Seeing that. Yeah.
Because I should never be in the position where people are going, have you seen this? And it's so frustrating.
I went running around my office looking for Star Wars fans. I was going, title. And they'd go, what are you talking about? And because obviously they hadn't read it, and I just went, look, and I took their keyboards away from them and was actually typing in the URL to go there. I was excited.
Where did you first see it on StarWars.com?
Star Wars Twitter.
On the Star Wars Twitter.
Yeah, I happened to be checking. I think I must have had a message or something because obviously, I get a lot of those.
I think Mark. Sorry, Rob, gone.
That's fine.
I was going to say, I think Mark Hamill's kind of, when he said it was a very samurai, I think that's a load of rubbish. I think he's thinking very samurai because it's The Last Samurai and this The Last Jedi. That's the only correlation between this and samurai. Samurai.
It's got a kind of a Kurosawa vibe to it a bit.
I don't know.
A little bit.
I don't see any samurai in there. Only because it's The Last Samurai and The Last Jedi. That's the only link, isn't it?
That might be all it is.
Yeah, Mike might have something else colouring his opinion there, though, right?
Well, that's the other thing I thought. Well, he knows something we don't.
True.
Well, he knows everything we don't because they're
are we
trapped.
talking Ronin then?
Ronin.
Are we talking something to do with what film is he? What's his favourite film? That is samurai based. Then do you know this? No, Mark Hamill.
Right. More to the point, Chris White, not so long ago, put out a list of 50. I think it was. How many films was it? Ryan Johnson put out a list of films, and Christopher White started sending us messages, sort of saying, this one's important and this one's important because of their thematic significance. And Ryan had given this list to the cast and crew and said, look, this thing we're making, watch these movies. They all inform what we're trying to do.
Right.
So maybe there's some information there. I might actually spend some time over the next couple of days having a look into that and seeing how that complements this title and makes what sense. It might, and if we can make sense of Mark's sort of reference to the samurai. So maybe it's something to do with Ronin. I don't know. I don't know. Initially, that doesn't seem to fit to me with where he and Ray find themselves, but
no, maybe not.
So is it plural or singular? I like to think it's plural, but it could be just as easily be singular.
Well, when I started thinking about this, I thought, well, The Last Jedi is Luke, but then Return of the Jedi, I've grown to accept, isn't referencing either Luke or the concept of the Jedi, but it's actually Anakin.
Anakin, yeah.
It's the return of that specific Jedi from the dark side. So maybe if Luke truly has gone a different path, remember he threw the saber away and said, I'm not doing this. He was set in motion by Yoda and Obi-Wan, and he said, no, I'm not doing this. I'm going to use a different way to reach my father and bring him back from the precipice. If Luke didn't become a Jedi, because remember he said, so I am a Jedi. No, Yoda said, no, not yet. Not until you face Vader. You must confront Vader. Maybe the Last Jedi is Anakin.
Possibly.
It might be a bit of a reach, but, that was the Last Jedi that was referenced in a Star Wars title was Anakin.
And they've thrown that red in as a misnomer for Kylo, haven't they?
Or Vader.
But more likely Kylo, because he's synonymous with red, isn't he? We had the red sword, the red Y-fronts he's wearing. There's a lot going on.
Are you looking at Superman again?
I just think that's a misnomer. It's too obvious to be Kylo.
It might not be anything. I heard Jason Ward talking about this on Now This Is Podcasting, and he said he felt that they chose the red so that when you saw this logo, you didn't just immediately write it off as The Force Awakens and just pass it over.
Right.
And I think that's it's
a possibility.
What do you mean, to make you concentrate on the title?
Well, we've seen the logo treatment for The Force Awakens now solidly for well over a year, right? So in fact, it's more like 18 months, and so we're used to it. And if they just floated this out the way they did, unceremoniously, as Rob pointed out, on their Twitter feed, we might have just looked at it and registered it as The Force Awakens and carried on about a day. But they wanted to draw your attention. So completely changing the colour design of this logo grabs your attention. You have to look at it twice because it's not what you've been seeing for 18 months. And I think Jason made a really good point. Most of the points Jason makes are good on that show.
That's entirely possible.
It's a very sober way of looking at it. That it's a design decision so that you don't pass it by. And we can all start picking over it now. So it's red's got something to do with the dark side. And it might do.
It's
Act
or
2.
death.
But that's the thing.
It's Act 2 of a trilogy.
Act 2 of the trilogy is, or everything goes to hell.
Yeah. Or at least if it's going to, that's where it's going to happen.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
So I think that the red, taking into consideration the point Jason was making, yes, the red could have something to do with that. And it could be a little bit of a fool's errand to pursue that any further, thinking that it is a hint to Kylo or to Snoke or to Vader. But I do think there's more than a little bit of a chance that I think it's most likely, just to be clear, that the Last Jedi is Luke. But there is more than a little bit of a chance that it's referencing Anakin.
It could be. Or Rey. I had a thought on this. My brain's been whizzing non-stop since it was revealed, right? So forgive me if I go all over the place here, because this is what my brain's been like for the last 3 days. Incidentally, having a podcast is a double-edged sword with this, because I wanted to talk about it on social media, and I thought, no, I'll save it for the show. And now I feel like everybody around me that I see on like Twitter and Facebook and stuff has covered the theories I'd already come up with, and then and said them, and I'm like, oh, should I still put them forwards? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think next time I just need to get out my own way and post things straight.
Facebook Live it, Rob, into the VIP group, and then grab the video and put it out on YouTube.
Well, immediately.
Yeah, immediately. When the thought hits you, just do it, and you can still drop it on the podcast. But that's what you should do. Just publish your thoughts as you go.
Yeah, that's probably a good way of doing it. Actually, maybe I'll try that next. Maybe I'll think about doing that next time. So there are a number of ways it could go. A lot of people are saying, because it's The Last Jedi, does that mean that Luke has to die? No. There are a number of ways in which it can happen. The title can make sense without anybody from the Force sensitive side of things dying. One of the thoughts I had was that he's folded the Jedi Order and he's kind of existing as something different.
Like the Bender.
So he was the Last Jedi, and he's no longer a Jedi. He's kind of walked away from that, and he's just. And actually, I was kind of thinking, wouldn't it be interesting if for a large part of the film, the story is not about Luke teaching Rey; it's about Rey begging Luke to come back and get back in the fight because he's needed, and he doesn't want to get involved because he gets people killed, and he's let people down by. I feel like I've kind of theorized on this in a previous show. Like this would have been a long time ago, but I'm going to carry on doing it anyway because obviously every show is somebody's first. So there are going to be people who haven't caught that episode, but indeed. I'm sure it's great. So there's every possibility that she might spend the whole film trying to convince him to get involved and actually having to fight against him quite a bit because. You can understand how he might be unwilling to get involved. That look he gives at the end of Force Awakens just as easily could be the look of a man who's haunted by his actions and his inability to successfully train Ben, which is how he sees it. him seeing that as sort of a reason to stay out of the fight completely. So he might be in need of convincing rather than just like, oh yeah, no problem, I'll train you. Come on, this way. We might see her kind of trying to sort of, imploring him to get involved with the fight, and he's going to be, resisting as much as he can.
Yeah.
There's also a possibility we might find out what he's been up to for the last 30 years, or certainly the last 6 years, because the title, if the title is The Last Jedi and he's the Last Jedi, it might be about what he's been up to and tying us into, where we're bringing us up to speed with what he's learned in that time. That was a thought I had.
Yeah. No, it sounds very plausible. One of
I've got a theory as well.
Go on, mate.
All right.
But it is so out there, I don't even know if I want to say it.
Do it. We'll be kind.
These are always classic.
Well, right, this is like just after our beloved Carrie Fisher's death, right?
Right.
She loved a red carpet.
Right.
Or was she intended to be the last Jedi, to learn the Force even at that late stage in her life? And this is like a respect thing for her?
I don't know.
That's
That
quite
feels a bit of that feels a bit of a reach. I kind of like where you're coming from, but it seems like a bit of a reach in terms of how likely is it?
I don't know, but wouldn't it throw everyone off?
Well, yeah, I mean, would be very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's one possibility, which is kind of the flip side to Rob's in a way, would be that Luke is in self-imposed exile because he's trying to preserve, the way Yoda and Obi-Wan did, but this is serious because he's the last man standing.
Oh, yeah.
He's had to go into self-imposed exile to protect the knowledge of the Jedi Order, the knowledge of the Force, not just the whereabouts of the temples, everything he's learnt since the fall of the Sith.
Yeah.
He is the custodian of that knowledge, wholly and completely. So after the attack on the school and Ben's fall to Snoke, he's gone into hiding on Arc 2 and he's waiting for her. He doesn't realise it's her. He doesn't know who Rey is, but he's waiting for the one. So it's kind of like, he's literally the last hope. When we first met him, he was the new hope. Now he's the last hope, and he's got to stay there with nothing but puffins until someone can come along and take the knowledge from him to continue the fight, the good fight.
Okay.
Now, whether it's the Jedi way
that.
or some sort of mid-ground, which we're told not to use the term grey Jedi now. I think Pablo squashed that, didn't he? There's no such thing.
Which is fair.
But the Bendu.
Yeah.
Paul,
also, sorry, I was going to say, Leia is also, the letters are in The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Well,
I know it's tenuous, but
yeah, the words, some of the letters from the word tenuous are in there as well. Paul, you've rejoined us. What's your take on the
measurable reach?
The title, the Last Jedi.
Consciously ambiguous. It's just supposed to keep us guessing until December, isn't it? In a nutshell. I don't think it's about a person. I think it's about the order.
The Jedi as a concept, yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's more than people think. I think Luke's been busy.
Oh.
And I think you might find there's a little army waiting.
Ooh.
What, on Arc 2?
Maybe. That's another secret only Luke has at the moment.
That's a great point. I hadn't
probably
thought of that.
not. Probably not. I think, like I said, I think when she gets there, Luke's going to be focused, semi-serious and aware and ready.
I like that, though. I hadn't thought of that. That's cool.
There are a lot of those little beehive-like huts. Everyone sort of suggested that they are remnants of an old sort of Force-sensitive society, or maybe like an order of Jedi monks or
well,
whatever.
Isn't it sort of speculated that it's the site of the first Jedi Temple because that's where Luke was heading?
But what if it's a community that's populated with Force sensitives now? And Paul's right. Luke's not there alone.
Could be.
What if at the end Luke dies and says to Leia, "You're the last hope now. You need to learn the ways of the Force."
Leia. I think that will certainly have to
be a tough one to.
That would have to change, wouldn't it? If that was the intention.
Yeah.
Depends which way they're going, doesn't it? We still don't know for sure.
Well, the thing, I had a thought about this the other day. Because remember when last time we were talking about how the CG. I was saying about how I thought the CG dismissal was a bit of a I thought it could be potentially a bold move that might not pay off. I had a thought about how it might be not the case and how I might be wrong, because it has been known. I considered the possibility that they know where her story's gone already. Not in the sense that, not to say that she's gonna, she's not gonna make it through episode 8, but they've got everything they need to resolve her story.
Yes.
And so they said, we're not going to do that because they don't need to, but they don't want to tell us they don't need to.
Yeah.
So they've kind of left it as, we're not going to do that. But what they left out is the follow up, which is because there's no need.
Yeah.
Because it's done.
Yeah, she was definitely slated to be in 9, but that was the impression I got. That doesn't mean that they can't utilise whatever they've got. So no, I'm with you on that. I think that with that statement they made last week, I think that the week before, they certainly know which way they're going to go, I think.
Also, just because they said, Colin Trevorrow said, I'm looking forward to working with Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill, doesn't necessarily mean they're both in the film.
No, she
they
did
could have been sort of smoke and mirrors.
She said when she was talking to Andy Gutierrez at Celebration on stage, she said, we've just finished one and we're about to start another.
Yeah.
Carrie
but then
said,
there might be a
collective we.
Yeah, the royal we. And that's the other way around, isn't it?
I think she was almost certainly going to be in there, but
I think that's most likely. But at the same time, it's entirely possible that's not the case. But we're not going to know until the nearer the time. We may never find out.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Let's have a quick look at Dave Donovan's comment then, because this is something that he sent through that was relevant to the title.
Okay.
So I can't see a new religion being introduced, but only this week Pablo was ranting heavily against Grey Jedi, saying there is no such thing. Mm-hmm. So maybe he is protesting a little too much. Snoke and Kylo, etc., clearly aren't Sith, but new dark side users. So why would Luke and Rey be Jedi? I think they've dropped all the rules / dogma, and that, excuse me. I think they've dropped all the rules / dogma, and that's what the title's referring to.
Mm.
Also means we can see Luke be truly badass and use elements of the dark side as he did in Jedi. Just random scrambled thoughts from Dave.
Yeah. On that subject, I think part of the reason people use the term Grey Jedi to kind of play devil's advocate is because we didn't used to have Jedi and Sith as a definitive kind of band within, it used to be the term Dark Jedi was used all the time in Legends.
Yeah.
So I don't, I think it's a hangover from that. So I don't think it's, I don't think it's deliberate to kind of muddy the water. I think people are just used to saying that because that's Light and Dark Jedi used to be the term for.
We've had to create something, haven't we? We've had to create a term to use, and we coined it ourselves, I think, independent of others on this show when we were talking about Luke and what he might be, what it might mean to be Luke now after his dalliance with the dark side in Jedi and his return along with his father at the end of that movie. And then we managed to expand on that when they introduced us to the Bendu, and then the route that Ahsoka took in the animated series, and then in a novel with the introduction of the white-bladed lightsabers and all that sort of stuff. It might be, Pablo might be unduly vocal here, saying that there is no Grey Jedi, but maybe he's being pedantic. That
maybe
that's not the term for it, but there's going to be something.
Yeah, or he's just trying to shape, get people into the habit of
drop this grey Jedi thing because it's going to be the Jedi Bendu. That's where it was way back in the day in George's script.
Yeah, entirely possible.
Paul, what do you see happening to the concept of the Jedi as we move forward in Star Wars then? Do you think it will survive?
The title suggests so.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of hoping it does in its traditional sense, to be honest. It's like that last line you were saying from, was it Dave? Sorry. Yeah, Dave. He's basically, hope Luke can be a truly badass and use elements of the dark side as he did in Jedi. Thing is, in Jedi, he was still becoming a Jedi. He wasn't a Jedi when he was doing that. So I don't want to see a Jedi going down that track. So in this case, if Luke truly is a Jedi, which we now know he is because the confrontation with Vader was almost like his seal, which as Yoda put to us. So if that being the case, I don't want that sounds stupid, like a clean cut fight, but I want to see a definite element of traditional Jedi in what Luke was supposed to become. And I'm really, really happy if it remains a good old fashioned light versus dark situation. To be honest, yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
That's the old Star Wars romantic in me. No, it is. I mean, that's always the story I fell in love with. So.
Yeah, I don't know really. I'm on the fence about that. I don't know enough about it to also give a comment really. But I was sitting here thinking about not episode 9 with Carrie Fisher's character, Leia in it, and I was thinking maybe the halfway measure, I think we might have touched on it last week, might be to bring Leia back as a Force ghost, because then she isn't CGI, but she's not real either, so people won't be offended. And the only reason they could do that is for Luke to train her up so that she attains that Force ghost status.
Yeah.
Then she could come back in 9 as a Force ghost, in which case she possibly, if Luke dies in 8, she could be the last Jedi. And in 9, they're all gone for good or seemingly for good.
I thought of something funny the other day. It's just one of those things that popped into my head. And it was the thing that would annoy me the most in episode 8 is if you go into the movie, obviously we pick up right where we left off as far as Luke and Rey are concerned. She's sort of holding the lightsaber out in front of him. And without saying a word, he just fades away. It turns out that he's been dead all along.
Another 7 seconds.
Well, he disappears like Obi-Wan in his camp.
He fades out, and then you just hear his voice for the rest of the movie.
But not his voice, it's the Joker. Hamill's Joker.
Yeah, what if it would be cool if he just got a blaster out, shot her, and you heard the Joker's laugh?
It just popped into my head, and it just tickled me. I don't know why that was, but I found it really amusing.
I hope they don't do that.
It's a good call.
And she does a Darth Vader and steps on his cloak. Where has he gone? Where's he gone?
I like the idea that the Jedi will survive. The concept of the Jedi will survive, but I like it. I like the idea of it being recontextualized. So the Jedi that we met in the prequels aren't really what we're supposed to be seeing. That they've been. We know that their temple was on top of an ancient Sith temple. So the prospect of that Jedi, that pool of Jedi being poisoned by the dark side a little bit, we may not be seeing free-range Jedi. What we got were the battery versions. Yeah. And I like the idea that Luke's found a more holistic way of becoming one with the Force and practicing the teachings of the Jedi on Arc 2 or in the temple. He's unlocking something. And we're going to get a version of the Jedi that we've never seen before. Even though his robes kind of suggest that we're not. But
yeah,
it would be nice to see something new and fresh.
Well, we didn't see what the climate was like, did we? We didn't get an impression of whether it's a cold planet. So, if Rey's sort of standing there holding out the lightsaber and she's going, "Will you take this, please? It's freezing."
Yeah, all her fingers.
It's not an island. It's bloody perishing.
All her fingers are blue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we pick up back where we left off. She's like, "Look, take this bloody thing. I'm freezing."
Just warm your hands on the lightsaber.
yeah.
That's a dangerous proposition. Have we got anything else we want to say about the title "The Last Jedi" before we wrap up? Because at this point,
I had loads, but it's just all gone.
There really isn't that much to kick over at this point, is there?
No.
It's just I love the way they're dropping these things quietly. And I love the way, when this happened for a couple of hours, I was thinking there's going to be a trailer. We're going to see something.
And that's what I was.
I knew that wasn't happening.
April.
She said that, but this came out for a reason. I don't know why. I mean, could it be something to do with Rogue One crossing the $1 billion mark? Or could it be something to put a smile on our face after we just had such a sad end of the year, having losing Carrie?
Did you see there's I believe it to be a well kind of engineered fake of a Caesar doing the rounds? No. Okay. Dave Donovan put it in the VIP group the other day, and the main reason I hope it's not true is because it's crap.
Oh, okay.
I thought I really didn't think much of it.
That voiceover trailer.
Yeah, I really didn't think much of that at all. In terms of if it looks, it's made to look like shaky cam and stuff, and in that respect, it's done very well. But
beyond awful, it looks like something that you would have seen in the 70s.
Yeah, pretty much.
It was a time of war. It's just a picture of space. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And if it is real, I am not going to see
it. We'll shut a Talk Star Wars.
Words indeed. Yeah.
Okay, right, let's wrap this thing up then. So thank you for listening to Talk Star Wars again this week. Don't forget to leave us your 5-star review in iTunes and take advantage of the Ron Burgundy policy, or do what everyone else seems to be doing at the moment and leaving us heartfelt, sincere reviews. It's very kind. But whatever you write in there, we will read it on the show. We got as you may have heard earlier on, we got a new sponsor. It's Loot Crate. So you can head to lootcrate.com/TalkStarWars and enter the code TalkStarWars in there and save some money on your first subscription. And if you want to get your questions or comments on the show, email us at talkstarwarsinfo@gmail.com or reach out to us on our social channels at Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Tumblr, Pinterest, you name it, we're there. Chaps, where can people find you between episodes of the podcast? Steve?
I'm at Stephen_Ware, Stephen with a V, _Ware, or Wild About Nature on YouTube and Twitter. And I'll also be, when's this podcast come out, Mark?
Monday.
3 days ago.
I would have been up to London. I'm doing a demonstration for Taji in Japan when they're killing 1,200 dolphins right as we speak, slaughtering them in Taji Cove.
Did they time it to coincide with the Talk Star Wars recording? Because that seems unnecessary.
They've been doing it for the last 3 weeks. Like they've now currently just caught a super pod of dolphins, 300 dolphins, bottlenose dolphins, and they are both butchering them alive and selling them to circuses. So there's a massive demo in London. Please support it and send messages. Tweet Japan Embassy or whatever, do whatever you can to let them know that we will not stand for it, but I will have been there and come back.
That is despicable.
And I will be doing a live Twitter feed while I'm there, so please
follow Steve and retweet and get behind this. That's awful. Good work, Steve.
Thank you.
Paul, where can people find you?
On the web, moviescorenews.com, on Twitter at moviescorenews, and on Facebook at moviescorenews.
Wonderful, thank you. So Rob?
On the web, obviously, besides Talk Star Wars, emotionally14.com. So that's digits, not letters. On Twitter, at RobWadeVision and at emotionally14. Facebook, emotionally14. YouTube, emotionally14. YouTube Talk Star Wars, but only the one video so far. But I do have plans to fix that, but life sometimes gets in the way.
Yes, it does.
But the main place you'll find me most active is at RobWadeVision on Twitter.
Wonderful feed it is too. You can find everything I do at talkstarwars.co.uk and on Twitter at talkstarwars. And you can find all of us by heading to starwarscommonwealth.com. You'll find every show in the network and every host sitting right there. And now also on the homepage you will find a YouTube playlist that everybody around the network is contributing to. So you can see everything that they publish as they do so on the homepage there. So by going to starwarscommonwealth.com, you can hook up with Tumbling Saber, Generation X-Wing, Rogue Squadron Podcast, the Skyhoppers Podcast, and our friends Tim and Troy at the Nerd Room. Thanks again for sticking with us this week as we've taken a slightly different, more listener-orientated angle on the show. We'll come back and do more of the old-fashioned stuff next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. It's a wrap.